It's Saturday, March 3rd, 2018, and it's time for my 10s, which are my top 10s of whatever I want to make a top 10 list of. Today I've decided to give you my top 10 PlayStation 2 games of right now. As of March 3rd, 2018. These are my top 10 PlayStation 2 games. I haven't played all of them, so someday the list could change. But right now, seeing as I haven't played my PlayStation 2 in about 15 years, this is a pretty solid list. So, I don't have to have finished the games. I don't have to be good at the games. I just have to have liked the games. I have roughly still about 50, I'd say, PlayStation 2 games still. I think the PlayStation 2 is about the time I stopped, because every generation of console, whenever I would get the next console up, except for the Atari 2600, the Atari 2600 going into the NES, I didn't trade in any of the games because it wasn't a big deal way back then. But with the NES going into my Genesis, I did trade in most of my NES games that I had. And I didn't have many, but I got rid of them so I could get Genesis games. So it was the same with the Genesis. The Genesis, I only kept about 8 or 9 games because I was going into the PlayStation. I wanted money for my PlayStation games, so I gave away a lot of the Genesis games, and I had about 30 or 40 of those. PlayStation, I kept most of my PlayStation games. I still probably have about, I don't know, I'd say 40 of those too. And then the PlayStation 2. Because by the time I got to the PlayStation 1, I had a job, I had my own money. Even at the end of the Sega Genesis, it was just I didn't have a lot of money because the job I had paid only like $5 or $6 an hour. So I still had to trade them in. By the time I had my PlayStation, I was making a little bit better money. I was in a better place financially, and I could keep the games and buy still PlayStation 2 games. So, same with going PS2 into the 360 and 360 into the One. Don't have to give up the games because I had the money to buy new ones and I could keep the old ones. And with the Xbox One, even going into the next console, I digitally download pretty much everything now. So I'm not trading in anything at that point. But let's go ahead and get into the list. My list is going to look a lot different than probably a lot of people's. But everybody has their own favorite. If you love the PlayStation 2 and you had a lot of games, I'm sure you have a top 10 list. This one's mine. Go ahead and put yours in the comments below if you would like. I'd love to see what you have. But this isn't to make anybody mad. This is my favorite 10. So it's like you have your favorite 10? That's awesome. So we're going to start off with number 10. Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. This is basically a Diablo clone based in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. It's a loot fest, dungeon crawler type of game. The story is basic, but it's a ton of fun. Love playing it. Got many hours. The story is a basic Dungeons and Dragons story. Hack and slash, go through it. You have your wizard, you have your tank, I think you could play multiplayer on this bad boy. I don't know. It was made by Interplay and Black Isle. I know they used to do a lot of good stuff. Number 9. Xenosaga. Not Xenosaga 2, not Xenosaga 3, this one. Now, when I bought this game, the first place I took it over to was my buddy's house because I was out with my buddy, went to I think maybe Media Play or something like that, bought the game. So this was back when there was no achievements. PlayStation 2 didn't have achievements. It didn't have really that much online connectivity. There was an online, I think, broadband adapter you could get later. But I took this over to his house and played this game. Played it. The first, I crap you not, the first 45 minutes of this game, you are just watching cutscenes. You move to a point and you watch another cutscene. It took and we timed it. It took 45 minutes for us to actually get to a part where we could actually play the game. That was obnoxious, but once I got into that game, I love the combat. I love the story. I love that game. I got Xenosaga 2 and I got lost because they kind of changed the way the characters looked a little bit because, of course, they made them look better. But it wasn't the same. It didn't feel the same. Even the combat didn't feel exactly the same. Number 8. Champions Return to Arms. So this is a Champions of Norath game. I think this is, I don't really know. Sony Entertainment made this thing. This game was kind of along the same lines as Dark Alliance. Dungeon crawler, hack and slash. It was a ton of fun. Ton of fun. This is the game, I think I did another video on this one, where you could play up to 4 players, if I'm right on this. Yeah, you could play up to 4 players on this game. And we would play it at my buddy's house. And the one friend would always be the wizard character, and he would just rain down and spam these big spells. And we couldn't see what we were doing. We couldn't see who we were hitting or anything because he was just always raining down these gigantic area spells. But I've talked about that game before. Number 7, Twisted Metal Black. Twisted Metal Black is my favorite Twisted Metal since the original Twisted Metal. I'm not one of those people that like Twisted Metal 2 that much. I've always loved the original Twisted Metal, and it's still my favorite Twisted Metal. I love the simplicity of it. The environments were small enough that you could still kind of find your enemies and beat the crap out of them. They didn't bring in a lot of silly, stupid stuff. There was no online only Twisted Metal Black. I love the darkness of this game. It got back to being dark. The original Twisted Metal was dark. Twisted Metal 2 started to lighten up. 3 and 4 got just goofy. But Twisted Metal Black is awesome. I mean, it is really a great game. It felt almost like the original again. And that's why I love Twisted Metal Black so much. Number 6. Blood Rain. Now, I know that Uwe Boll made the worst movie ever out of this, but originally this game was so much fun. I had so much fun playing this game. I actually played all the way through this game. I beat this game. It was the best. I mean, I had so much fun. Majesco made this. They made a part 2. I played through part 2 a little bit, but it didn't hold my interest as much. This game, I really enjoyed this. I probably got a good 30 or 40 hours out of this game. But the original Blood Rain, really good game. I think it's a game I'd love to see another sequel to. You know, a sequel along those lines. They made like another Blood Rain game that was almost like a side scroller. I don't care about that. I want another Blood Rain game in the essence of the original Blood Rain game. Number 5. Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends. Lu Bu. That is the best character in all of Dynasty Warriors. That guy is awesome. I play Dynasty Warriors games just to get him unlocked so that I can start playing as Lu Bu. There used to be, I think it was in this game or maybe it was in part 2, but Dong Zhuo, there's a line that me and my friends always say when we're talking about these games. And it goes, "Where is Lu Bu? I'll be surrounded soon." I don't know why that entertains us, but we're always just like, "Where is Lu Bu? I'll be surrounded soon." And you're just crashing through the whole... And it's like, Lu Bu's on his way. He's wrecking fools. He's coming at you. Just be patient, Dong Zhuo, you fat little pork belly. Lu Bu's on his way. Extreme Legends was a build on Dynasty Warriors 3. I think it added things like Bodyguard, 7 Untold Stories. It added some new characters. You could get there was a new very hard difficulty, but you had to have the original Dynasty Warriors. But there was so much content in that. It is still one of my all-time favorite Dynasty Warriors games. I think Warriors Orochi 2 might be my all-time favorite Dynasty Warriors type game. But Dynasty Warriors 3 Extreme Legends, it had everything that Dynasty Warriors 3 had, plus. It felt like a proper... I think it was only 30 or 40 bucks brand new. It wasn't like a full price title, but I loved it. Number 4, I'm a racing game fan. I started to become a racing game fan on the PlayStation 1, because I'm sorry, the racing games before that none of them, I couldn't find anything I liked. simulation-wise. Then Gran Turismo came along on the PlayStation 1. This, to me, is still the best Gran Turismo game of all time. Gran Turismo 3 A-Spec. There's a lot of people that say Gran Turismo 4 is the best, or This one, to me, was the best. This is the one I dumped the most hours into. I loved this game. I still do. I mean, I have my PlayStation 2 out, and I'm just trying to find the hookups to plug it back into a TV, because I kind of want to play some of these games again and just go back to a simpler time when there wasn't achievements. You could actually use a Game Shark or a Game Genie or something. Well, it wasn't the Game Genie, it was a Game Shark or an Action Replay. It's like, I have so many great games that I want to play on my PlayStation 2 again. And of all the consoles, the PlayStation 2 is probably my favorite. I wouldn't mind collecting some of the games that maybe I left behind, and traded in, because I probably owned about 100 PlayStation 2 games, but I used to trade them in just because I'm not going to play it again. And then I wish I had, because I wish I still had some of these games. I've talked about this game before. I think it was in my sequel game. But this is my number 3 favorite game. ESPN NFL 2K5. This is the best football game on the PlayStation 2. This is the best football game since Tecmo Super Bowl. If I had to rank my favorite video game football games, Tecmo Super Bowl would be number 1. This bad boy would be number 2. This game was so good, and it was only $30, brand new. $30. Amazing game. So much fun. The reason it was $30 is because the people that made this game knew they had a game that could compete with the Madden series at the time. But probably 90% of the market belonged to Madden. Most people bought Madden when they bought an NFL game. Well, they took a little bit of a bite out of them when they released the game, because basically there was a 2K4. They basically tweaked it, made it better, made 2K5, put it out for only $30. I bought it because it was only $30, and I was glad I did. Still, the next year after that, EA bought the license to the NFL. That series died, and it's too bad, because EA knew those guys were going to overtake them. So, and they had ESPN's backing. So they were set up to take down Madden. EA, people give them crap about maybe being stupid and they're not a good company. They understood. You gotta squash that competition before they can get a foothold, and they did. I wish they didn't, because I love that game, and I think it would have been better than the Madden series. But who knows? They may have gotten fat and overweight like the Madden series too. So, and may have gotten, too big for their own success. Number two, Grand Theft Auto 3. Now you're saying, well, where's Vice City? Where's San Andreas? That's not the best Grand Theft Auto game. Yes, it is. This right here, I remember a buddy of mine. He told me, he says, have you played Grand Theft Auto 3? I said, no. And he says, you have to play it. And he started telling me about all this stuff you could do it. You didn't have a lot of open world games. This was one of the first true, real open world games that you could really just lose yourself in and just have a ton of fun. He told me about it. I went out and I bought it instantly. Grand Theft Auto Vice City, I didn't like the town. It was too flat. There wasn't enough elevation change, and it just wasn't as much fun to drive around in. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, I didn't like the characters. I didn't like CJ. I didn't like any of the characters that were really in it, other than maybe Officer Tenpenny, who was done by Samuel L. Jackson. But I finished Grand Theft Auto 3. Loved it. Quick story about Grand Theft Auto Vice City. No, I'll tell that another time. Because the video is almost at 15 minutes, so I got to get through this. Excuse me. Number 1, though, Final Fantasy X. Final Fantasy X is still the pinnacle for Final Fantasy games for me. I love Final Fantasy X. I loved the characters. I loved the story. I loved the world. I didn't like Blitzball. I loved pretty much everything else. I loved the combat system. Even that weird laughing scene that everybody kind of mocks, I got why they were laughing like that. I understood it, and it's like most people, I think they understand, but they still mock it. It's still the best game of all time. Even X2 held my attention all the way through, but Final Fantasy X, still the greatest game on the PlayStation 2 for me. So what's your list? What did you think of my list? If you liked the video, please like it, subscribe, and to all the troops, past, present, and future, thanks for the freedom.